If you're a music fan or you've ever listened to the radio, you probably know this song.
There is a house in New Orleans.
The House of the Rising Sun by Eric Burdon and the Animals, almost required listening for anyone who's interested in classic music. 3 years ago, one of the first videos that I made on TikTok that got really big was about the House of the Rising Sun, and I kind of just think it's time that I revisited this story. This story begins way back in the 1930s with a very important man, an ethnomusicologist by the name of Alan Lomax. Alan and his father John took it upon themselves to go out on foot into the small towns, the factories, the prisons, and the mines, and anywhere else where working class Americans could be found, to talk to the people and to learn about the music that was developing during this time. Alan Lomax made what would be the first recording ever of House of the Rising Sun by a young woman named Georgia Turner, singing it a cappella in the rural Appalachian hills of Kentucky.
The only thing that a drunkard needs.
However, it was definitely a lot older than that. Over 100 miles away, a country singer named Clarence Ashley was known to cover the song as early as 1933.
It's a suitcase and a trunk.
He claimed to have learned it from his grandfather, indicating that the song could be as old as the American Civil War, making its way around the country, and it's possible that it even has roots in early English folk music. By the time the Great Depression came around, a lot of folk singers became interested in covering the song because the music really suited the era. A lot of warnings in songs during this era, a lot of songs about traveling, tales of sad people who lose everything here or there. Country singer Roy Acuff, who would later become known as the king of country music, covered the song when he was working with Clarence Ashley in 1938.
There is a house in New Orleans.
So after that, it moves kind of away from the country music genre and towards folk music, where artists like Leadbelly and Woody Guthrie both picked it up and did versions of it.
Way down in New Orleans, house called the Rising Sun. In the ruin of many a poor soul and me.
Inspiring countless others to do the same, most notably people like Pete Seeger and Judy Collins.
My husband, he's a gambling man.
All a gambler needs, God, is a toothbrush and a trunk.
So now we're in the late 50s, early 60s, and the song has found its way to the streets of Greenwich Village, where the folk scene has started to pop off. A guy named Dave Van Ronk, incredibly underrated artist and musician, picked up the song and reworked the arrangement to make it sound a lot darker than the earlier versions had.
It's been the ruin of many poor.
Dave started playing his version of the song around the village, and he planned to record it himself. Before he could, however, the scruffy kid comes out of nowhere named Bob Dylan, interested in covering it, and asks for Dave's permission to use his arrangement for his debut album.
I'd never done that song before, but I heard it every night because Van Ronk would do it. So, you know, I thought he was really onto something with the song, so I just recorded it.
Bobby picked up the chord changes for the song. For me, really altered the song considerably, although the lyric was pretty much the straight House of the Rising Sun lyric, and so was the melody. He asked me if I would mind if he recorded my version of House of the Rising Sun. And I had some plans to record it, so I said, well, gee, Bob, I'd rather you didn't, because I'm going to record it myself soon.
To which Bob responded, uh-oh.
What I have done.
It was too late. He'd already covered the song, and it would go on to become one of his first small hits. After this, everybody and their mother wanted to cover the song, and it was being passed around to all the folk musicians in the village, including Joan Baez,
Here's a house in New Orleans,
and Tim Hardin.
They call the rising sun.
Well, Nina Simone also famously did a beautiful cover of it the year after Dylan's version was released.
Now my mother is a tailor.
So I'm a firm believer that sometimes songs need the right performer to bring out the magic in them. I've talked about this with regards to Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix, or Dream a Little Dream of Me by Mama Cass, Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley, and it was bound to happen with the House of the Rising Sun. So eventually, thanks to the World Wars, American music started to spread to other parts of the world, particularly England, where American blues, jazz, and folk became a fascination for the young people there. The British invasion bands started to come together, and one of them was a group from the northern metropolitan of England, Newcastle, called the Animals. And the Animals had a secret weapon that none of the other bands had. They had their lead singer, Eric Burdon, and his deep, distinctive blues rock voice.
I wasn't interested in the British invasion at that time, but then I discovered the Animals, and I never heard anything like that, so emotional, so strong.
They covered it with the Dave Van Ronk arrangement, adding an organ for their own sinister touch, a sound that, up against Eric's voice, reminded people of horror film music, kind of Vincent Price vibes.
There was one engineer there, and when Hilton was racking up to do the intro, no, you can't do that, man, it's distorting. And we're going, that's what we want, distortion.
Really amplifying the theme of the song, regret, warning, and an effort to keep the youth from following the same paths as their predecessors.
One of my favorite movies of the time was called Walk on the Wild Side. The soundtrack was by Jimmy Smith, and the keyboard was just phenomenal. And I played it to Alan, and I said, this is what you've got to do. End of verse 3, stop, and go into to push the whole thing along.
In the fall of 1964, House of the Rising Sun by the Animals hit #1 on the US Billboard charts, blowing away every other version that came before it. The song had found its home.
The keyboard wakes you up, set you on fire, wow, what's all this about? Sex for sale? Oh my God. This is, the devil himself at work, after recording Rising Sun and performing it right. I'd be backstage and I'd have a girl on each arm. Wow, this is great.
The #1 spot on both the US and British pop charts.
Not that nobody else ever covered it again after that. There are dozens of versions of House of the Rising Sun, including Frigid Pink, Dolly Parton, Five Finger Death Punch,
The House of the Rising Sun,
and a ton of others. But nobody does this at the point where there are actual chills running down their spine, quite like Eric Burdon and the Animals.
Yeah, sounds good. Another place and time.